Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We're going to kick off now. Love to see that the chat is already super active. Please do type in where you're tuning in from, what school you're coming from. We're so excited for a jam-packed day today. Welcome, everyone, to AdClub Student Day 2022. First to kick off, we're going to pass it to our amazing president of the Advertising Club of Toronto to say a few words. Chris, over to you.
Thanks, Caitlin. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Student Day 2023. My name is Chris Ramey, and I am the president of the Advertising Club of Toronto. Now, I know we have a lot of students on the call today, and you're probably wondering, what is the Ad Club all about? Well, we are a not-for-profit organization that puts on both fun social events for the advertising industry and also educational events. All the profits we do make from our events, we donate back into the advertising industry. And we do this through student scholarships, which help many of you. And we also do it through our support of NABs. And you'll be learning a bit more about NABs just after, or in about a few minutes. Now, if you want to learn more about the Ad Club or become involved with the Ad Club, you can visit our website, adclub.ca, sign up for our newsletter. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, and you can follow us on those social channels just to keep up to date with what we are doing. Now, I know when I was first starting out in the industry and starting my career, the Ad Club played a really important role. It was really an area or a place where I could meet new people and network and find out about some of the challenges going on in our industry. And through my involvement in the Ad Club, I've had so many amazing job opportunities. I've made amazing lifelong friendships. And I've also been able to develop new skills I probably wouldn't have ever learned if I hadn't been involved in the Ad Club. So I hope all of you will be able to come out to more of our events. Hopefully we can help you grow your career like I was able to grow my career. And hopefully you'll have a wonderful time at our future events. And hopefully you have a wonderful time today. So I'm going to pass it over to Mark Neves, and he is from NABS. He's going to tell you a bit more about our industry charity. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks very much, Chris. My name is Mark Neves. I'm from NABS. If you haven't heard from NABS, if you haven't heard of NABS, I encourage you to check us out. Website at nabs.org. At a high level, we're a unique charity specifically designed to support the health and well-being of everyone in the media, marketing, and communications industry in Canada. We've been doing it for almost 40 years. And while we offer dozens of programs and services to the community, one that I think you should be aware of that we just launched this year is the Newcomer Employment Success Program, NESP. So it's really built to do two things. One, help those immigrating to Canada that are coming with experience in this industry in another country. And two, help new Canadians that want to break into this industry. So it's really about figuring out how the Canadian advertising and marketing industry works, how you fit into it, how your skills translate, and what our employees looking for. It's a comprehensive curriculum that contains workshops where you get to work with peers and a career coach, group and one-on-one coaching sessions, as well as keynote sessions from industry leaders to provide you insight on how to build the best plan. And I know this is going to be hard to believe, but it's all free because of the amazing support we receive from partners like the Ad Club of Toronto. So check us out. Reach out anytime to learn more. You can reach me at mnevis@nabs.org or visit us online on our website to learn more. Thank you very much. And back to you, Caitlin.
Caitlin, you're on mute.
Passing it over to Darina, who's going to share now.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Darina. I am Ukrainian, and as you guys know, due to war in Ukraine, there is a lot of people who needed to move somewhere else. And I just wanted to share an opportunity with you that I'm a part of right now. So again, as we all know, a lot of people needed to move somewhere, and a lot of them chose Canada as their destination. So when the war started, as Ukrainian, I wanted to have a chance to support newcomers to Canada in some way. So what I did, I joined Help Ukrainian organizations. What we do, we support, train, coach Ukrainian newcomers to Canada affected by the war in Ukraine to help them find a job and kickstart their career here. We already helped more than 300 people. In the last 3 months, we delivered more than 15 workshops, more than 50 hours of training on resume writing, interview preparation. We developed a number of workbooks with practical exercises and templates. We launched a conversation club where newcomers can practice their English in a friendly setting and casual setting. And our team is growing. So today I wanted to get a chance to kind of share this opportunity with you to, or join our team or maybe volunteer. So what you can do is scan the QR code and let us know if you're interested in participating in any way. Maybe you would like to be volunteering in our conversation club. Maybe you want to help us teach Ukrainian newcomers, learn more about the industry. Maybe you would like to help us with sponsorship. So if you are able or want to support us in any way, please let us know. And you can reach out to me directly on LinkedIn, or again, scan QR code on the slide and let us know if you're interested. Thank you so much. Thank you, Caitlin, over to you.
Thanks so much, Darina. All right, we're excited to kick off the day and just want to give a big shout out to our AdClub of Toronto Student Committee. These are all the folks who have worked hard over the past few months to put today together. They're all on the line behind the scenes today, and we're really excited for having such an amazing team and for all the hard work that they've done. So shout out to our 2022 Advertising Club of Toronto Student Day Committee. Quick housekeeping. This is the agenda for today. So after when we're done the opening remarks, we're going to pass it over to our amazing keynote, Victor Genova. After that, we have 2 amazing panels for you, one of past Student Day attendees and one of seasoned professionals. After we wrap up our closing remarks, we're going to announce some of our prizes. And then as a reminder, we also have our in-person networking event mixer. That's at 5 to 7 p.m. later today at 111 Queen Street East, which is the Publicis office. Hope to see some of you there who have tuned in today virtually. Also at the in-person part, we're so excited post-COVID to be able to get back together in person, and networking is definitely going to be a hot topic of today and the key theme of our keynote especially. Throwing it over to Chris to talk about some of the prizes for today.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Wong. I'm the Vice Chair of the Student Engagement Committee. And what kind of event would it be if we didn't have some amazing prizes to give out today? So first off, we have some Yahoo luggage. I don't know if that's the actual luggage itself, but I guarantee it is cool. And everyone who is participating today will be entered into that draw for the Yahoo luggage. We also have about 15 Spotify premium subscriptions. And how we're going to get those out today is really by your level of engagement and your questions through the keynote and the different panel discussions. So definitely get your questions in there. We've got some of the committee members as moderators in the chat, and they'll kind of identify some great questions and choose the winner. So there'll be 5 in each of our segments today. And then finally, we've got 2 American Express gift cards courtesy of M&K Media. And we're going to give these out today through social media. So please use the hashtag AdClub Student Day 2022. Post your thoughts about the event and the content you're hearing. Maybe you share a photo of the virtual event today. Post it on LinkedIn, post it on Instagram. If you use the hashtag, we'll find you. And for anyone who posts, we will enter you into a draw for one of the 2 $100 Amex gift cards. All right, so let's get into some of the content here. So it is my pleasure to introduce Victor Genova. So Victor is a veteran media sales leader whose career spans 15 years in traditional broadcast and digital media. He's currently the Senior Sales Director at US-based Inuvo Inc., leading their expansion into the Canadian market. He's also the founder, producer, and host of the Media People podcast, a podcast dedicated to telling the personal and professional stories of the people who power the media industry. I've definitely checked out many of the episodes, and I highly encourage you all to tune in as well. So with that, Victor, the virtual stage is yours.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the introduction. I'm just going to share my screen to get my presentation up, and then we will take it from there. Just want to make sure everyone can see the screen.
You're good.
I'm good. Okay, one more thing I need to do to just cue this up, and away we go. All right, guys, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak today, and hello to the, I believe it's something like 300 plus students or just participants on this call. My name is Victor, and I'm looking forward to delivering today's keynote, and it's all about your network and your reputation and how it's going to grow your career. And so a little bit about myself. So I've been in this business for almost 16 years. I spent the first part, 3.5 in broadcast, and the balance of it, the last 12 in digital. Currently, I am Inuvo's Senior Director of Sales for Canada. I'm leading the charge as they enter the Canadian marketplace. But what I want to talk about today is what I've learned along the way, and that's how important your network and your reputation is to your specific career growth. And so if I do my job properly today, and I hope I do, you're going to learn that your career progression isn't linear at all. I'm going to demonstrate how your network is your biggest asset if you want to grow your career, and how reputation is woven into this. Because let's face it, you can have a network. Doesn't mean they like you. So you've got to also do some reputation management and building on top of that. And then I want to leave you with some parting advice. I like to call this the conventional method of applying for a job. Everyone on this call has done this multiple times. And I'll go through it. You know the drill. You've got your resume, or sorry, you find a job you like, you dust off your resume, you apply for the job online. Maybe you advance to the interview process, and then maybe you can convert that to the role. You actually land the job. And that's the way a lot of us are going to do it, especially when it comes to your first job. What I'm here to tell you, though, is that there's a different way. As you grow within your career and as you start to build a network, there's this method, the method I like to call the networking method. And you'll notice it doesn't really have a start and a stop. It's kind of this sort of infinite loop, if you will. And let me take you through it, how, starting on different spots can lead you to career growth. So let's say, for example, you've got a network, okay? So you've got a network, and then hopefully within that network, you've built a strong reputation. So that means if someone is looking to hire, maybe through your network, and then based on your reputation, you can convert all of that into an opportunity. And then you've got yourself a new job. So let's pretend you're planted in that job and everything is going well. But while you're in that job, you're also going to, do more reputation building, because new people are going to learn about you. They're going to see what you're capable of doing. You're going to add those people to your network. They can be within the organization. They can be outside of the organization as well. And then that could lead to a new opportunity as well. So I could go over this slide over and over again, but you get the picture. This is what happens when you start to grow your career. You get away from that conventional method and you move into this networking method where opportunities are all around you and you've got to come at them from different angles. And so in my 15.5 years that I've been in this space, I have been 100% on the media and ad tech sales side, never been agency side, haven't been creative side at all. And I've been at these 6 companies. We're going to hit the pause button for a second. Out of these 6, and just think about it, how many of them do you think I got doing it the conventional way versus, say, the networking way? Got an answer in your head? Well, yeah, that's what it is. Literally, my very first job, I landed it the conventional way, but then networking and my reputation, that's what got me my subsequent roles and actually helped me grow my career. But let's go into a little bit more detail because I want to show you how this happens. This is a difficult thing to teach, but hopefully I can impart some knowledge so you can build out a strategy for your own career. So graduated from my undergrad at Brock University, and I applied for a job at CBC on the broadcast sales side as an account coordinator. The whole process took about 6 weeks. You applied, you went through a couple of interviews, and then thankfully I was one of the successful candidates and landed the job. But I was also a bit of an academic as well, and I was looking at getting deeper into academia, maybe getting into becoming a professor. And I left CBC after about 9 or 8 months, or 8 or 9 months. Came back from school, graduated, and said, you know what, I want to get back into the job field. And I tried the conventional way. I was applying at places, 50-50 chance of getting an interview, wasn't converting it in anything. And then one day in my inbox, boom, there is an email from my former boss. And she says, hey, heard you're back in town, heard you're looking for a job. Your old role has opened up on a different sales team. Are you interested in coming back, and can I connect you with the hiring manager? And I was like, hell yes. She emailed me on the Monday. I met the hiring manager on the Wednesday, and I started back at my old job at CBC the following. Remember, conventional method, getting back into the exact same role only took 5 days, because when I left this, left a good reputation. I had done some really work with them, so they were happy to bring me back on board. Direct really wanted to break into digital. I could see the writing was on the wall from broadcast, and that digital was really going to overtake it. So really hard to try to get in. Again, using the conventional method, applying, sometimes getting an interview, wasn't converting at all for me. At the same time, I joined NABS. You learned about NABS early on. And I joined something called the Ambassador Committee. And what it was a committee that was planning events and parties designed to raise awareness for NABS and the services they provide for the industry, but also to raise funds that can be reinvested back into the greater organization. Little did I know that competently planning parties would actually lead to my first digital sales job, because on that committee, I met my future boss, and she was the director of sales at Astral Media, the old digital websites. And my competency actually landed me that digital sales role, not applying over and over again and spinning my wheels. But all good things come to an end, and Astral Media was acquired by Bell Media. And the writing was on the wall that a lot of us were going to lose our jobs. They were going to be taking 2 digital sales teams and putting them together into one. And I didn't want to be on the outside. At the same time, just before this had happened, one of the sales directors at Astral had moved over to Rogers Media. So I gave her a call and said, hey, I'm looking to leave Astral. If you happen to be hiring at Rogers, I'd love to come over. And she said, actually, we're creating this role that's going to be looking after small to medium-sized agencies. And I had a reputation for really nurturing small to medium-sized agencies at Astral. So I fit perfectly there. And she said, well, why don't you come over? And just like that, I was a Rogers employee. During my tenure at Rogers, I was headhunted for a role at a startup called Connected Interactive. And how they got my name is that they were looking for someone, they were looking for referrals, and a friend and a colleague, or sorry, I should say a client who I'd worked with on and off over the years, gave them my name. He thought that, I fit the bill for what they were looking for. And so got in touch. And from there, I landed at Connected Interactive. But if it's starting to look like that jobs rain down from the heavens, I assure you that's not the case. It's important to be proactive. And one day in about January, a press release from Blue Ant Media had come out, and they had formed a partnership with an ad-supported streaming service that basically wanted to be an ad-supported version of Netflix at the time. And I looked at that and said, that's the future. I got to get in touch with these guys. So I found the name of the vice president who was quoted in the press release, deduced his email by just doing a Google search. And I sent him a note and I said, hey, love what you guys are doing there, interested in this partnership. If you happen to be hiring, I'd love to talk about opportunities. And I gave him a couple of bullet points about why I thought I made sense for the company. He immediately wrote back and said, hey, you know what? We're not looking at doing anything right now with this, but we'll get in touch. And sure enough, just about a year later, I get an email from the HR department at Blue Ant Media, and not just a random email. They're actually now copying and cited on the original email I'd sent a year earlier and said, hey, we held on to your email. Do you want to talk about an opening? And from there, again, went to the top of the pile, interviewed, and landed the job at Blue Ant Media. And this is how I landed at Inuvo. Someone in my network, a friend of mine, someone who I'd worked with before, he had been headhunted for the role. And he said, you know what, this isn't for me, but I know a guy you want to talk to. So he passed my name along. And that referral led me to where I am now in my career. And so let's just go through this, because it's kind of this sort of crazy adventure. It's kind of like a comedy, or a romantic comedy, if you will. Applied for a job, got it. Left for school, came back, could not find a job. And then I was hired back on. First time it was 6 weeks. Second time it was only 5 days. Tried hard to break into digital and I couldn't. Met my future boss while volunteering for a charity. Was competent at planning parties, and that was enough for her to hire me. Offered an opportunity by a senior executive from my previous role to jump over to her. Again, my network said, hey, you want to talk to this guy if you're looking at hiring? And that's how I landed at Connected Interactive. Proactively reached out to Blue Ant Media to say, hey, what you guys are doing there, and I think I can complement and help with what you're doing with your new streaming service. And that's what brought me over to the company. And then last but not least, I was headhunted through a network referral. And the reason being is people want to work with people they know and trust. And if you're looking for an example of it, the best example is in the entertainment industry. Directors will bring actors with them everywhere they go. You can go through IMDb and find all of these multiple collaborations. One that I wanted to highlight was Quentin Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson, because they've been working together since 1994 off and on. Started with Pulp Fiction, and as recent as 2015 for The Hateful Eight. Now, if you're looking at this and going, yeah, Samuel L. Jackson's in a lot of his movies, so what? Don't look at it that way. Treat this like a LinkedIn profile for Samuel L. Jackson. And he has 6 films, because remember, each film, because he's a contract employee, is a different job. he has 6 more jobs than he otherwise would have had on his LinkedIn profile because of his working relationship with Quentin Tarantino. And it's not just Quentin Tarantino and Samuel L. Jackson. There are other directors who collaborate with the same actors and actresses over and over again. Chris Nolan, I want to call it specifically because it's not just the actors he works with. He brings his production designers, his set designers. Hans Zimmer, the composer, and him have worked together at least 5 times. And he also brings his cinematographers over. So they go together as kind of a package deal. And you're going to start to see that in this industry as well. As you start to make friends and network, you're going to notice that certain executives will move companies and they'll slowly but surely bring other people that they know and trust because they've worked with them in the past. And so that's why if you want to be part of that, you got to shape your reputation before others do it for you. So just to close with some parting advice, first and foremost, please straighten out your social media presence. Understand that if you're applying for a job, especially in this industry, we're going to Google you. We're going to find you on social media. And while you are allowed to be you, we are also allowed to draw our own conclusions based on what we see. And if you're the type of person that's picking fights with strangers online, you're being overtly political to the point where it's incredibly toxic, or you just love to complain. DoorDash messes up your order, and rather than dealing with it through the appropriate channels, you scream about it on Twitter, we're probably going to pass on your candidacy. And that's because nobody wants to hire a liability. And it's all about emotional intelligence. And if you're hearing about it for the first time, that's exactly what EQ stands for. We are not curing cancer in this business. Mastering media and marketing isn't difficult if you're willing to put in the time and you can learn and you're coachable. But how you interact with others will impact not only your personal success, but your employer's success as well. For the greater good, you need to be able to manage internal and external relationships with patience, tact, and diplomacy. And I know sometimes it's going to be very difficult to do that. But if you're on social media, make LinkedIn a priority. And if you're not on LinkedIn, get on it now. I noticed a lot of people were throwing their LinkedIn URLs up into the chat early. Good on you guys. This is instrumental for personal brand building, and it is definitely key to network growth. Find topics related back to your area of interest or where you're working, your professional background. So post about that, share other people's posts, like other people's posts, comment and do it regularly, okay? Use this as an opportunity to connect with others, and you'd be surprised, how quickly you get known virtually throughout your peers. So there's kind of a bit of secondary relationship management that happens on LinkedIn, even if you haven't met anyone. We've already been hearing about getting involved with places like NABS and then the AdClub, but there are other opportunities in other organizations as well. You've got the Canadian Marketing Association. You've also got the Interactive Advertising Bureau of Canada. They're always looking for volunteers to assist with events, or just, if you get the chance to participate directly with them. It gives you the opportunity to rub elbows with your contemporaries at other companies, but to also network with people outside of your pay grade. This next one's going to be tough. Get into the office. And I'm not talking about the TV show. I mean, literally the physical office. I get the allure of remote work, and not having a commute is incredibly attractive. We get to have careers in our sweatpants. I'm wearing sweatpants right now, but shoot for in-office or hybrid roles. They're going to provide you with invaluable skills that cannot be taught. Things like reading the room, being able to speak directly to a group of people. The decorum and feeling of an in-person meeting is vastly different from anything you're going to find on a Zoom call. It also provides you with opportunities just to get to know your colleagues, simple things like small talk that have gone away. And if you do hybrid work, find out when your boss is in and sync your days with their days. I assure you, those who regularly secure face time with the people that hold the keys to promotions, they're the ones that are most likely to move up. You might be looking at this going, what do you mean create a network fund? I'm paying off my OSAP loan. I should have a fund. No, but this is something incredibly different. Just take $25 off of every paycheck, put it away and forget about it until you have the opportunity to take someone out. It could be a colleague. It could be someone outside your organization. Do breakfast with them. Do coffee, lunch, nothing fancy. You can do fast food. That's what you want to do, is pick their brains and find ways to network with them. I've been doing this for a number of years, and it is a great way to get to know people. I also can't put past just how important it is to have a mentor, someone who is willing to impart their wisdom and experience. It can be a big help if you're at a crossroads or if you're just looking for general guidance. I like to break mentors up into 2 categories. The first one is an active mentor. And this is someone you approach and ask, hey, will you be my mentor? I personally do not have an active mentor. And the reason is that I find that once someone agrees to be your mentor, it sometimes changes the scope of the relationship. And they tend to think that everything you do is a teachable moment. But I employ a number of passive mentors, almost like a panel, and they don't even know they're my mentors. And you don't have to have a formal relationship with them, but they're there so you can bounce ideas or questions off of them when you need to. Heck, if you're looking for someone who's incredibly passive that you don't even know, it could be someone in pop culture where you're just, reading up on the trials and tribulations that they've had within their career. President Obama actually has a passive mentor, and it was Abraham Lincoln. He found that early on in his administration that he was really at odds with a number of people within the Oval Office. And he turned to the stories of Abraham Lincoln because Lincoln also had very unpopular policies for that specific era and time, but he had to push through. And he was also a very lonely president. So he drew strength from the teachings of Abraham Lincoln. It's also very important that you treat everyone, not just your boss, with respect. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of an exercise right now. I want everyone to stop and think about their classmates. At the same time, I want you to just kind of scroll through some of the names that you see there in the chat. Do you recognize people? Probably do. There are also probably people you don't recognize, but that doesn't matter. Chances are you guys saw potentially your future boss, maybe a future colleague, a future direct report, maybe a future client. This is a very, very, very small industry. I kind of equate it to a high school cafeteria, and each table represents a different job. And like high school, things can change. You could be sitting at a different table one day in the cafeteria. So it's extremely important that you respect everyone. I'm not saying that you need to be a pushover. Don't be disagreeable, but just ensure that everyone you work with is shown just a basic level of respect. Now, you have to solve your boss's problems first and foremost, though. We always look back at our jobs, and when people say, what do? You talk about all the fun things you do. And that's true. You do a lot of fun things, but the reason you do them is because there are problems for your boss and you've got to solve them. Do your job to the best of your ability. Still get involved outside of work, but remember that your job is what pays the rent and puts food on the table. And the best way to grow is to focus on what your boss needs from you. And here's a real world example of that. So this is a quote from George Clooney. And what he's doing here is he's speaking about the audition process, which is essentially a job interview for actors and actresses. And it's easy to look at the interview like you're on the X Factor or you're on America's Got Talent, and there's a Simon Cowell there just waiting to poke holes in everything you say in your entire career. But in reality, that's not the case at all. No one wants to be sitting in hiring meetings. No one likes turnover. They desperately want to find the right person as quickly as possible so they can get them onboarded and just working ASAP. So use the interview as an audition to show how you can solve your future boss's problems. If you're really looking at building your career, you always have to think 2 jobs ahead. First and foremost, I'm going to say this again, do the job you were hired to do. But once you've proved your competency, start to ask for duties that will help make you more attractive for another role or help you ease into that next role. At the same time, you need to ask yourself, where do you want to be in 2 jobs? And the point here is to ensure that you continue down a path that leads you to where you want to be. So let's say, for example, your goal is to be a creative director, but you were hired as a media assistant at an agency that does media and creative. Then you need to ensure that those incremental responsibilities lead you towards the creative director path. Because if you don't, guess what? You're on the path to being a media planner, buyer, supervisor, and that's not the next logical progression if you want to be a creative director. And it's also very important to never, ever, ever stop learning. The problem that a lot of you guys are going to have when it comes to adjusting to this is that education is no longer linear. And that's because you were put through a system that said, we're going to put you in elementary school. It will prepare you for high school, and high school will prepare you for college and university, and they will prepare you for your career choice. And if you think the learning stops with graduation, then you're destined to be left behind by your peers. And the evidence is there. You're going to see people in this industry who have graduated from the same program at the same school, maybe within the same year. But why is there one who went all the way? And why was there one who stayed within a mid-level job? And it's very simple. The one who went all the way to like president, VP, or managing director roles, they continued to learn. They continued to reinvent themselves. IAB Canada and the Canadian Marketing Association, they're very good at offering these courses meant to fill these gaps and just to sharpen your skills, because these things come up all the time. I've taken some of them, and I would wholeheartedly encourage everyone here to look into them as well. However, though, sometimes you don't need a course. You just need an answer right away. Or maybe your style of learning isn't conducive to the way things are done in school. Maybe you just like to learn off your own, find your own answers. Check out Reddit and definitely check out YouTube. YouTube, you'd have to do some searching, but you can find a lot of videos that can fill the knowledge gaps for you. Reddit, I would highly recommend joining the AdOps, marketing, and advertising subreddits. You ask questions, there are a lot of qualified people there who have got answers. I've asked questions. I've even helped support people too who have asked questions on there. And last but not least, I want to leave you with a quote from one of my first bosses at CBC. His name was Brad Furtney, and he also ran Twitter Canada for a number of years. And it was the best piece of advice I'd ever received. And it was, you are the only one in charge of your career. If things aren't going well, move on. If you're not getting the opportunities you've been working towards, move on. If there's a promotion you're interested, get in there and ask for it. Don't sit there and wait quietly to be selected. I assure you there's far greater competition coming from within your own colleagues, your direct competition, and they've probably put their candidacy forward as well. How did I get this opportunity to deliver the keynote speech? Well, I put together a presentation and I reached out to Caitlin and Chris and said, I would love to participate in Student Day. Can I audition for it? And we went through the cycle, and that's why I'm here. And so just to reiterate, it's network and reputation. That's what's going to grow your career. You don't want to have a job, you want to have a career, because there's a big difference between the two. It's not going to be your resume. Your resume is still important. I'm not dismissing it whatsoever. But as you get into job number 2 and job number 3, network and reputation are going to be central to that. And so I wanted to thank everyone for the time today. Looking forward to fielding questions, and thank you to the AdClub and the student committee for having me. If you guys want to check out my podcast, you can just, Chris already teed it up very well at the beginning, but I've got some QR codes there if you're a Spotify or Apple podcast listener, but it's also on every other streaming service available. So I'll turn it back to you guys.
Great. Thank you so much, Victor. That was amazing. I certainly picked up some tips myself, especially owning your own career. So thank you for that. We've got some amazing questions coming through in the Q&A. I've tried to kind of summarize them into some common themes here, but one that's kind of immediately bubbled to the top is around networking. Lots of different questions. But just generally, do you have any kind of like guidelines or tips on how to kind of network successfully? And is there something that you wish someone had kind of told you early on in your career about how to network successfully?
Geez, join extracurricular events. That's the best thing I can tell you to do, because you're going to get a chance to meet like-minded people. And you're also going to have a task as well. It's not just like, hey, who are you, blah, 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 back and forth. You're given, like when I joined NABS, we had to plan parties. So we got to work with each other. We got to understand people's work ethics. And when you're working with someone, whether it be your paid job or a volunteer job, you get to understand them a little bit better. You get to have different conversations with them. So I would say the best thing you can do to really kick off your network is to volunteer wherever you get the opportunity to do it. Don't overdo it, but still, if the opportunity presents itself, jump on it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's a chance to kind of showcase your skills and your stick-to-itiveness, if that's the word, and your follow-through. So definitely agree with that.
The second part of that, Chris, where you said, is there anything that anyone had told me? Yeah, just how important volunteering is. Because sometimes you can come into the industry a little jaded, and you've got student debt, you just graduated, maybe you're working a part-time minimum wage job beforehand, you just finished maybe an unpaid internship, and you're like, okay, I'm in the working world now, and now the expectation is what, I'm going to volunteer. Take the time to do it. And I don't blame people if they think, no, I've got to focus on my job, which you absolutely should, but take the time to volunteer. And I wish someone had told me that early on.
Yeah, definitely. AdClub is always looking for volunteers, so lots of opportunities. Just on the networking. So it sounds like you've been successful in your own networking. Some people have asked, are there any other success stories that you can share of other people that you've kind of maybe helped connect and help kind of move their career along as well? Any kind of success stories and how you've been able to kind of pay it forward and help other people network successfully?
I mean, there's a number of ways to answer that. It's a loaded question, but one thing that I always try to do is that if I notice that someone in my network that I know, because let's face it, you can connect with thousands of people on LinkedIn, and probably only about 2 to 3% of them you're going to be in constant contact with. Others can be scattered around. If I notice that they're out of work and I know that they've got a great reputation, because remember, when you bat for someone, don't want to send someone who's another company, because then that's going to look poorly on you. And so anytime I see someone who might be looking for a new job, it says open to network, a note about that and say, hey, you know what? I noticed you're looking, you might want to get in touch with that. The other thing too is similar to how I landed at Inuvo, where a gentleman was headhunted and said, not for me, you might want to check with Victor. If someone does headhunt me for a role, and it looks like something someone in my network could use, I'll put them in touch with them. And sometimes they've landed the role and sometimes they haven't.
Yeah, but you facilitated, right?
Oh yeah, I
conversation.
facilitate the introduction. I just say to them, hey, this job's not for me, but I do know someone, can I connect you? And if they're okay with it, then I connect, okay with being connected as well.
So we have another question, you know, kind of highlighting something you mentioned in kind of your path, is how you started a job, you went back to school, and then it looks like you went back to the same company. I believe it was the CBC. So just, I think this is around like perception, but how do you think that looks outwardly to people who, you know, have a job, go back to school, and maybe go back to their same job? Is that a negative? Like, how did you kind of spin that, or how did you kind of use that to propel you forward? I think you mentioned you kind of transitioned teams when you went back to the CBC.
Yeah, I was doing the exact same job. It was just on a different sales team because they had about, at the time, 4 different sales teams. I mean, optically, when I came back, sure, I'll be very candid with everyone on the call. They're just like, some people were like, oh, you went back to school, you got a fancy education, and now you're doing the same job again. But I didn't care. I was at a great organization. I was absolutely flattered that I had left such a great impression after only about 8 or 9 months there, that my old boss put me forward for the opportunity on the other sales role. And I also knew as well that there were opportunities to grow within the CBC. So it's not like I was a broadcast coordinator forever. About 8 or 9 months later, I made such a strong impression on my new boss that I was able to make the jump to a sales rep. And that's how I started my sales career from there.
Yeah, so you almost like expanded your skill set and really stretch yourself a little bit. So trying to play up kind of the new tasks or new skills that you developed in that second role.
And the CBC looked a little bit different than the CBC I left. So I expanded my network because there were a whole crop of new people there as well that I got to know.
So a couple more questions around networking, specifically around asking for like informational interviews. Have you used them in the past? Do you think they work? And any successes that you've seen in, again, reaching out to someone maybe in your network, maybe you've met at an event, and asking for an informational interview, maybe to learn more about their company, their role, or maybe to get connected with someone else they might know. Any insights there?
Not as formal as calling it the informational interview. I just would send an informal note to someone and say, hey, you know, I like what you guys are doing there. I'd love to learn more about that. If they want to follow through on it, they will. If they don't, then try finding someone else in the company. If you get a no or you get a cold shoulder from someone, it could just mean that they're too busy, and just move on and try to find someone else and go from there. Something I will say though is download job descriptions. And don't treat them like a job description, but treat it like a checklist, and have an honest conversation with yourself and say, okay, are there gaps in my career? Gaps that, you know, what would make me less likely be a candidate for this role, and then use that as a checklist to try to fill those gaps.
Yeah, definitely trying to align your skills with that job description. And they don't have to match perfectly, right? It's not a checklist for a hiring manager, but there has to be some alignment there.
You have to be honest with yourself. Like, you have to be humble and go, okay, am I swinging for the fences here? Do I need to put, and there have been times when I've applied for jobs, haven't gotten them. I mean, even through my network, I might have still gotten an interview. And then on LinkedIn, I'll see who got the job and I'll be like, oh, wow, they were considerably more senior than I was. So maybe I wasn't ready for the job. So maybe there is a bit of a knowledge gap I have to fill there. That's actually another important thing too. If you go for a job and you don't get the job, just scan the company's LinkedIn page and see who got the job and see what their profile looks like. See if it's comparable. Like, were you that close or were you way off?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely done that before. Some questions around your social presence. I know, I think in one of your early tips, you said to kind of brush up and polish your social presence. So bit of a two-part question here, but one is it seen as a negative if you don't have a social presence? I guess if you're, I don't want to say like a ghost, but just kind of like a minimal presence. And so maybe we'll start there. Like, how do you feel about, you know, you talk about polishing it up. What if you don't have one, or it's a little like light? How would you kind of advise someone to kind of
this is a good question.
Yeah,
I like this one because there are a lot of people running from social media for various reasons right now. And it's a difficult thing to do in this industry because you have to be on social media, I think, to understand it. Social media touches everything. I'm not really on Facebook all that much anymore. Usually for me, it's just Instagram and LinkedIn. But what I'll say to people though is that try to create a social media profile that is harmless. Like if you find me on Instagram and my Instagram page is wide open, you're going to really learn 3 things about me. And that is, I love cars. I collect obscure sports jerseys, and I have a podcast, and that's it. If you go to my my Instagram profile and find anything else about me from there, you're making it up. And so that's what I'd recommend that people do. The challenge in this industry though is that you probably want to be on every social media network because you want to have that experience, but there's only so much time in the day. So just dial it back to the ones that are important to you and the ones that give you value back. And if you're light on social media and you're not crazy about it, curate it. Do it in such a way that when you do log on, it's only giving you stuff that you like and stuff that you're interested in.
Yeah, so kind of like be diverse, but also I think also like be yourself, right? Like be your genuine self.
Yeah, be your genuine self. I'm not saying don't be you. I'm just saying don't be that person that picks fights with everyone. We all have an uncle or an aunt or a cousin or a friend who does that. And it's like a trigger warning anytime they see an article about a politician or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to dial it back. Don't be like them.
So another question, another thing that's come up, within your network, maybe you see a role that you're interested in. What are some tips and tricks to kind of gently nudge your network to either respond or help you make that connection? Anything that I know you mentioned the networking fund. I love that idea of like maybe just grab a coffee like in real life with someone and talk about what you're looking what you're looking for. But any ways to kind of nudge and nurture your network that you've used in the past?
So we're assuming that a job has come up and it looks like you know someone who works at the company, or say, for example, you know someone that knows someone that works at the company.
I think so, yeah.
So you send them an email.
Situation.
I wouldn't even say nudge, ask. I mean, by all means, please. Not enough people are actually asking for things in this industry. The worst thing that happens is they say no or they ghost you. And it's like, okay, well, my career is exactly where it was before that came about. I didn't lose anything. It's not like Jeopardy where you get an answer wrong and they dock you $200 or $300. So send them a note and go, hey, I'm really interested in this. I noticed that you're connected with so-and-so. Can you make that connection? The other thing too is there are tools all over the internet. There's one that you can actually use for free up to a certain degree called hunter.io. And what it does is it actually tries to find email addresses for you at specific companies. You can put the URL in, and then what you can do is you can find it. And then go to LinkedIn and go, okay, who's likely to be the hiring manager if you can't figure that out through your network? Who's the HR manager? And send them emails and saying, hey, I saw this posting. I'd love to talk more about it. It's happened when I've been hiring managers, like say, for example, at Blue M Media, and it works pretty well. It's a great opportunity to make a first impression. And especially if you're leaning on going the sales side or agency side, you're big into new business development, they want to see people that are tenacious. They want to see what we like to call hunters, people who are willing to go out there and make those connections without having to be pushed or nurtured into doing it.
That's great. Thanks, Victor. I think we've got time for maybe one more question here. I'm just going to scan through. There's so many to choose on here. So thank you everyone for your engagement here. This is an interesting one. It's less about maybe that first job, but maybe once you've gotten your first role in a company and you want to kind of do some internal networking, right? Looking at maybe different paths you want to go to within a company, maybe different teams. But looking at more senior folks in that company, what are some kind of tips or tricks that maybe you can share? And I've got some thoughts on this too, and how you can kind of establish those connections and maybe grab a coffee with that VP in another department that you're interested in. Any tips or any thoughts there? And I've certainly got some thoughts on this as well.
Okay, there's a couple ways to strategize around that. Assuming you go into a company that does a mass email that says, hey, welcome to the party, and everyone starts to hit the reply all button like they do to say, hey, welcome, welcome, welcome. Find certain people and use that email as an in. I mean, it might be difficult to get in with a VP, assuming you're in a semi-entry level position, to get in and have coffee with a VP on like day number 2. Mm-hmm. But if they do hit the reply button and say, welcome, reply back and go, hey, can I buy you a coffee? The other thing to do is start off small. So once you get settled in your role, start to look at the people that directly and indirectly impact your day-to-day duties. And from there, branch out. So really work to bring them into your network, get them on your side. And then once you get to know them, you can actually, and I hate using the term use because it sounds so possessive, but you can use that relationship to make the jump to meeting their bosses and then working your way up the ladder and getting to know everyone. It's a long process though. Like, and please, if you do start a job, don't make that your focus for the first month. Do your job. I can't stress that enough.
Hey, that's one way you get noticed is just do your
Yes.
job really well. I know within my company at TD, and there's lots of forums to kind of showcase success stories, wins, both to your immediate team, but also to the broader leadership group.
Well,
I'd
something to
also
touch on actually really quickly about that, Chris, is in my most recent episode 71 with Sarah Thompson, the president of Dentsu Media Canada, it was like in the closing part of the podcast, I always ask, what's the best advice you'd ever received? And one of her superiors at the time when she was working in public relations said, Sarah, you do amazing work, but no one knows who you are. You've got to get out there. And so you don't want to be stuck like that, where you're doing all this great work, but no one knows it's coming from you. So be loud and be proud about that.
Yeah, it's okay to toot your own horn sometimes.
Oh, it definitely is. Like, I mean, don't be arrogant about it, be humble.
Yeah.
But yeah, please, if you've done something, feel free to put your hand up and say, hey, I was proud to be part of this, and give credit to others around you, because it's unlikely in this industry you did it all by yourself. And if I saw one question spin through there quickly, when we were talking about social media presence, someone said, what if we make funny videos on TikTok? That's fine. Make your funny videos on TikTok. You're showcasing that you know how to use the platform. All I'm saying is do not get toxic and overtly political and pick fights with people. That's your checklist. Avoid those three things. Have fun.
That's awesome. Victor, I think that is our time today. Thank you so much for your presentation and taking some Q&A. I know you already put your socials up so people know where to find you, but again, Victor, thank you.
Yeah, just go to mediapeople.ca. That's where you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn. I'm linked back there. I'm going to try to address a couple of questions in the chat as well. And if you guys happen to be around after, I'm going to be at the networking event in real life. So ask me any questions.
Amazing.
Don't ask me to edit your resume. I'm bad at that. I get that asked quite often. Thanks, everyone.
Great. All right, we're now going to transition to panel one, our past student day attendees. Moderating the panel will be Darna. And Darna is a great success story. She's a past attendee of Student Day. She's now project manager at autotrader.ca and also a member of our committee. So with that, Darna, I will pass it over to you to introduce yourself and the panel.
Thank you so much. Well, I was also attendee of Student Day back even before COVID. So I'm super happy to be here today moderating this panel, and we have some amazing guests today with us. So once again, welcome to our Student Voice panel. We are so happy to see so many people joining us today. My name is Doreen, as already mentioned. We'll be moderating this panel, and we have some amazing speakers with us. And maybe let's start with a round of introductions here. Mash, would you like to go first?
Sweet, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Mash. I'm a senior planner at Starcom. I've been in media for about 3 years, but I got into it through sport marketing. And I was actually at the last Student Day event right the week before COVID. So that was pretty fun.
Amazing. Okay, then next, Jen, would you like to jump in?
Absolutely. Morning, guys. My name is Jen. I am currently a junior art director over at Ogilvy. I am a recent grad. I literally graduate tonight. And it's my first time taking part, so I'm happy to be here.
Amazing, and congrats too. Okay, awesome. Kevin, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kevin. I'm a semi-recent grad. I was actually a COVID graduate in 2020, so I have some experience struggling to find jobs straight out the gate. And now I currently work at OMD as a strategist, and happy to share my experiences with y'all.
Amazing. Happy to have you with us today. And last but not least, Needy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, Dorina. Hi, everyone. Nidhi Mehra. I am an account manager at Walmart Connect. This is my third time at Student Day event. First time I came here as an attendee, and this is my second year as a guest speaker. Happy to be here.
Amazing. Well, so happy to have you all with us. Just a reminder for everyone, if you have any questions for our speakers, please put them in QA box and also in a chat. We are monitoring that, but we will get to that very soon. So please just make sure to put your questions there. So I know we heard a little bit about networking from Victor, and I know you guys probably got a lot of tips. So now let's maybe chat more about networking on this panel. So we all heard the word networking, and usually like we need some definition for that. Everyone has a different definition for that. Someone says go have a coffee chat. Someone says reach out on LinkedIn. There's a lot of things. So everyone have their success story. So do you guys want to share your success story when you network successfully, or maybe when networking failed? Anyone would like to go first? Needy? Okay.
Yes, I can definitely take that up. So first, I would like to share the successful networking. When we talk about success at networking, it's pretty broad. It's not just about getting a job. It's about developing and maintaining that network for a lifetime. But even if we have a very, very myopic view when we are thinking about networking with somebody who can get you a job, I have such an example for you. So as I said, this is my third year at AdClub of Toronto student day event. I did connect with somebody who's heading this committee, which is Caitlin. Caitlin works at Pinterest. I connected with her. What I really like about her is that when I connected with her, she gave me some advice, and then she connected me to 3 more different people so that I can broaden my network as well as I can get other pieces of advice. And then after a couple of days, she recommended my name on one of the job postings on LinkedIn. I connected with the person on Walmart Connect on LinkedIn immediately, as I was always and still always on LinkedIn. I connected with that person before even applying for that role online. I got my interview booked. So applying online for a job is actually just a formality if you can connect with the hiring manager. So that was, and finally I had my interview and I got that job. This was one of the successful networking experiences that I have. I haven't actually had a failure event to speak about, but I can definitely tell you what it looks like. So if you think about networking, it's a two-way street. You cannot network with somebody if somebody is not interested in networking with you. And when will that happen is when, if you have only one-sided conversation, you are just thinking about taking something and not providing a value to the other person. That's when failure happens. Another thing that is when you fail to follow through or you act inappropriately, only asking for a job, not being on a call on time. These are some other instances where you actually put people off. That's about it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I feel like a lot of us definitely experienced that. I had people reach out to me on LinkedIn saying, hey, would you like to talk about it? And then they would not respond. And a lot of things like this happen. So definitely thank you for sharing your story. Jen, do you have a success or failure story that you would like to share?
That I do. It's kind of like a double header. Because I remember, I guess, end of 2021, I guess. My program, I was at Humber College and we had our portfolio night, and being new and nervous to the world and generally anxious as a person, I assumed that the night would be meant to secure your position somewhere. So I spent the whole time freaking out, overthinking, and kind of hovering around people to hear the conversations and try to like find my end and be like, no, I'm going to see myself out. That's not my end. And then you overthink it and you build up on it. But you have to remember that networking is not, like, as Needy said, it's not about getting a job. It's about genuinely making connections and like meeting people and just kind of furthering the information that you take and like your influence in the space around you. So I guess for that story, my fail would be the panicking and the overthinking within that night. And then to eventually, like as the night wore over, because mind you, this was entirely virtual. It's very difficult to network virtually, but our school found a way to make it happen. And, you know, after you let your guard down and just walk around and just meet people, you form connections. Those connections give you more connections because then it just becomes conversation. And that is a lot of the ways that you can get in and around the advertising world, because most of it is just casual conversation that leads to more. Like the most great ideas come from exactly that. So, you know, don't think too hard next time you're networking. Don't even necessarily think of it as networking. It's just conversation with some new people. And yeah, just try your best, guys, and don't freak out in the process.
Thank you so much. Great insights and great tips. And actually, a lot of people who join us today might be able to also do this later today in Networking Mixer. So thank you so much. Next, Kevin, do you have a story would you like to share with us?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I don't really have any failure stories. Like they've said, I don't really look at networking as a success or failure. I look at it more as just learning from other people and hoping to provide what you can provide to them. But I do have a semi-success story where, and this is more not necessarily like reaching out on LinkedIn, but just being proactive and asking questions to people. So I was actually at my brother's hockey game. He's 11 years old, and his goalie's dad is in our industry. And I found that out randomly through just chatting with him. And then I learned he's kind of like in the same role as me, just a little above, and just connecting with him. And then I could pick his brain while I was at hockey games and just stuff like that, where you can really learn from other people, and not just through LinkedIn, but through any experience, wherever you are, you can just, hockey networking. Yeah, that's basically my success story. It hasn't turned into a job or anything, but I don't need it to. It's just learning about the industry from other people.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And definitely what I hear from all of you is it's important to be genuinely actually interested in what person does and their story. It's not about asking for a job and be like, hey, I need a job. I saw a job posting or something. It's not about that. That's not what networking is about. Thank you so much for sharing. And Mash, would you like to jump in here?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good networking stories. And I think for me, I guess, in terms of success, I think the little things matter. I think generally, like everyone said, being interested in talking about what the other person has to say and making those small little impressions and things like, if you get the LinkedIn, like the next stage is sending them a message, nice chat, that kind of stuff. I think those little things go a long way. And the success story that builds off of that is I think I've made an impression on someone on the HR of an agency. And I remember when I was first starting off, even if I wasn't looking to hire, every time there was an open job in that range, like she would always reach out to me first. So that's really a good story. I think in terms of failing, don't really have too much, but I do think little things like, I think everyone's mentioned just providing value to the conversation and just that relationship as a whole. I think if you can manage that, I think you'll be pretty set, because just like I think Kevin said, there's not really any failed networking. It's just just building relationships from scratch.
Yeah, and also it's just a learning opportunity, right? You're connecting with people to learn more about the industry, like what they do. When I talk to students too, I always say that, like reach out to people and see what they do for their job. Like if you ever want to be part of the job, it's not about just getting a job, it's learning here. So definitely thank you so much everyone for sharing. And let's jump to our next question. Is actually from Ash as well. I know you were at Student Day before COVID started, and I'm sure you had a chance to network. I remember there was a lot of interesting things here. Would you like to share a story how you participated in a Student Day?
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. It was actually my first time going there as well, and it was pretty nice because coming from a small school, going into an event where you see so many like-minded people around your age, and also kind of like the same mindset and same goal, it was really exciting to be in that environment. And I think being a student, wasn't really exposed that much to the agency landscape, right? So going to the Student Day, seeing all these different agencies, different vendors, just talking to people, and again, networking, right? That is something that was really helpful. And I think one of the coolest thing that happened for Student Day, I remember in between the panel speaking, right before we went from one panel to the other, I think there was a break, and I think it was Caitlin, she got us all to stand up, and just for 5 minutes, I think, do your stretch. But as you're stretching, just network with the students around you. And that's so great because you're going to be meeting these people and they're going to be progressing through their careers as you're going through their career. So these are the same people that you're going to be in touch with. So I thought that was really, really, really cool and really helpful. And yeah, I think I still keep in touch with a few of them, of course. And yeah, and I think the biggest thing, I actually got to meet Caitlin for the first time there as well. And, you know, we exchanged LinkedIn's or whatnot, and we're going to follow up. But the next week was COVID, and, you know, it was all, you know, all gone. But then recently, not too long ago, we had an industry event, and then we're like, hey, we met. And like, you know, we kind of reconnected and kind of picked back up. So that was really exciting. But yeah, I've had the best experience, and I've got to meet so many people from the industry. Not only did I learn more about how different kinds of agencies, you know, vendor, whatnot, everything, as well as the fact that it gives you an opportunity to kind of be around like-minded people, all sharing the same goal.
Exactly. No, I remember myself, I was running between classes, I don't know, taking buses, like 3 buses from Seneca or something, and then coming back to my class later. But definitely for all the students out there, new graduates, it's so cool to go to networking and just events like this, where you meet people, will connect with people. And honestly, later you will see them in industry. Same thing for me. I met Caitlin on that day. I also met someone from Publicis from HR. And even though later I didn't get a job, I got a job like in 2 years, and they remembered me when I had an interview. So definitely highly encourage for everyone to join industry events like this. Thank you so much for sharing. So for our next question, it's actually for Kevin. And I know you transitioned from Mohawk College to the industry, and you also experienced all the COVID things. I know it's been really tough. Would you like to share how it's been for you?
Yeah, I'll start from it starts to go a little long, just TLDR me, and I'll give you the rundown. But advertising is actually my second program. I started off as a paralegal, and I graduated from that. And then after not finding a job there, I moved into advertising. And as said, that was at Mohawk College. And within the first few weeks, I realized like this was what I wanted to do. With all of the guest speakers coming in, we had a lot of networking classes where that was the whole focus was learning what kind of roles are available. But that was also kind of like a deterrent for me because I had a state of analysis paralysis, I guess you could say, where there was so many available jobs compared to like paralegal, where it's just paralegal or law clerk. So I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then fast forward to when I was searching for internships, I kind of, since I liked every aspect of the industry, I kind of wanted to touch every point. So like programmatic, strategy, planning, buying. So I thought strategy would be a good place to start, or planning in this case. And I did a mock interview for OMD for assistant strategist role that didn't turn into an internship, but they reached out back later and said, would you like to do like media planning or buying? So I was like, yes, media planning would be amazing. And then they said, well, we have a buying position. Would you like that? So my first piece of advice, I guess, would be not to pigeonhole yourself like right at the start or think this is the role I want, this is the role I'm going to go to, because eventually it can branch out, or there's a lot of movement in the industry. So try to get your foot in the door first would be like the number one thing for me. And then, yeah, so I did the assistant buying for my internship, and 2 weeks into that, COVID happened. So I finished the last 5 weeks from home, and then there was no job that came out of it because everyone had like a hiring freeze. And I continued to follow up with my internship team for like every couple months throughout COVID. And then eventually I didn't get a job with them, but I got a job through them with where I'm working now, which is the Warner Bros team. And that was still at a buying role, which I liked it in the internship. So I was still completely happy to do it. And after a year of that, eventually it all came full circle to where I was able to transition into a strategy role, which is kind of what I was thinking at the very start. So just to TLDR it, like I said at the beginning, don't be afraid to pick what you can get. Like it can all come full circle. There's lots of opportunities for growth and transitioning to different roles once they're in the industry. I would just focus more on getting in it first. And yeah.
Definitely great advice. And honestly, would also highly recommend, you get into industry and continue networking and talking to people, right? Because maybe there is something else out there that you might want to try at some point. So yeah, no, definitely great advice, great story. Thank you so much. Jen, so for internship, we'd love to learn more how you got an internship. What was the success story for you there?
um, that one is a little bit, I guess, on the less conventional side, because for me personally, when I was before I got into advertising, wasn't really sure that I wanted to do it. So I actually became a mom about like 7 years ago. And that's when I decided I was going to go back into school. Ended up going to a fashion program. So I did my fashion arts and business program at Humber. In that last final project there, they give you an assignment where I was given the role of art director. And then that's what I was like, oh, what's all this? This sounds interesting. It sounds exciting. It went well enough that I was like, yeah, no, let's pursue this academically. Hence me going to Humber and doing my 4-year program. So started that in 2018. Then we all know what happens in 2020. COVID, yay. Here I am today, just about to graduate. So I was able to do the last 2 years of my program virtually. And then from there, as I mentioned earlier, trying to get internships and networking virtually as well, which is very scary. And I'm sure you guys have all felt this way or expressed or experienced this in the past several years that we've been going in a post-ish COVID society. And even though I was terrified and nervous about not knowing how to navigate things IRL versus virtually, there's one thing that I know the best thing to do is to be authentic and be curious and just, as I said before, just meet people and learn things, because eventually it might lead to an internship. It wasn't my intention when I met the people that I met that led me to get to where I am today. But by meeting people that you're inspired by and just genuinely wanting to learn about them and find out more about the industry through them and through their team, that's basically what led me to get to Ogilvy today, because I met a person who was like, hey, you remind me of this person. So I met that person, and then we found out that a lot of our interests and the way that we think is the same in a lot of ways. And then that person became my mentor and then taught me great and amazing things. And then though Ogilvy at the time did not have an internship program, I was kind of on the radar as someone who was eager to learn about advertising and just trying to be there. So I guess in this case, to get to my internship, it was with enthusiasm and just being open-minded and saying yes to everything that kind of got my foot in the door. So they figured some things out. It took some time, about I don't even know how many months it took, but they eventually were able to get me a spot as an intern, which I did for 3 months. From, I guess it would have been May to August of this year. And through my enthusiasm in the whole experience, they just kept extending me. So I'm still here at the moment, and it's going well. And it's literally the authenticity and enthusiasm that has taken me this far, because if you have the right attitude and you're willing to learn the things and do the hard stuff, you can learn basically anything. So you don't have to worry about being like, oh my goodness, my portfolio is not up there. It's not this, I'm not that. Don't focus on that kind of stuff. Just focus on the things that you can learn and grow into. And it'll really propel you in that internship role. I'm not saying this is the hard stick way to maintain an internship, get an internship and then grow from that. But that was my personal route. And that is something that I guess I will vouch for everywhere through and through. Just be yourself, do the things, be enthusiastic about it. And yeah, life just keeps kind of going from there. And then you adjust, you learn, and then you continue to grow in the process.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And honestly, people are so happy to help in the industry. If someone is reaching out, they will be eager to help and connect you with someone. So definitely be open and continue doing. And just for all the students, new graduates, you don't need to wait to graduate to start networking with someone. You can do it in your college already with your professors. Maybe you will have some guest speakers coming at some point. Even people right now, the networking event, just reach out to them on LinkedIn later. But definitely thank you so much for sharing your story, and definitely agree with the enthusiasm and everything. That's what's really important when you're connecting. Awesome. And just to remind to everyone, please put your questions in QA box or also in a chat. So Perfect. Before we get into questions from students, I would like to ask Nidhi to share a little bit more experience on how the student day resulted for you in the job. Did you have maybe any expectations when you went to student day? Anything that, I don't know, stand out for you?
Darina, as I said that I was not a student, but still I was looking for all kinds of opportunities to network with people, to know more about the industry, what's happening and all that. That was my reason to attend Student Day. And this is something that I would do after each and every event. I would try and connect with the speakers and get on a call with them to try and understand, because I was struggling to get into my field. I just was looking for any piece of advice that they could give me or probably point out if I am following a wrong process. So this is something that I was expecting. Now, connecting with Caitlin, I was doing the same, but somehow, when I spoke about myself or whatever my pitch was during our call, maybe my experience or something stood out to her. Maybe she understood what exactly I was looking for. And that is one piece of advice I would give to everyone, that whenever you connect with somebody, don't be confused. Be very clear, what exactly are you looking for? If you are a fresher and you don't know what you are looking for, probably you can narrow down the space at least, that I'm looking for some entry-level role in an agency. Because if you are clear about what you want, it helps the other person help you. So that's what happened. Because I was crystal clear about what I wanted, probably that's the reason she could kind of put me or direct me in a direction that actually helped me.
Thank you so much. And question actually for you, I saw questions in a chat regarding, like when you're reaching out to someone and you want to have like informational chat or network with someone, there should be balance between here's what I want and I need the job, or here's what I'm looking for, right? And let's just chat. So you mentioned pitch. What that looked like for you? And if anyone else on the panel would like to jump in, please feel free.
Sure. First of all, when you connect with somebody, give them an agenda. And I'm sorry to say, but the agenda cannot be a job. I want a job, that's why I'm connecting with you. Like, I'm sorry to say, but I do not have time in this world to just look for a job for one person. No, you have to make sure when you connect with somebody, you put your best foot forward. And just one reason a job cannot be the thing. Keep it open and see what the other person can offer you. Give them an opportunity to offer that to you rather than you asking. Ask for advice, share your resume and ask for their tips. See if there is something that probably you are not looking at. Probably there are opportunities not in bigger companies, but smaller companies, and probably you are not looking at those. Give the other person a chance. And also when you pitch, when I say pitch means present yourself in the best possible manner. Talk about what you are looking for. Talk about your expertise. And because we are dealing with students here and most of them come as freshers, probably you are not realizing that you also have a power which is better than or power over experienced professional. And that is raw talent. That is, you don't come to organizations with a baggage. You don't come, I have a decade of experience. When a new company tells me this is the way we are going to try this, most of the time I already know, we have tried that, but this does not work. Freshers don't come with that baggage. They are ready to give their 100%, their heart and soul to try something out. And that's why sometimes organizations look for freshers or look for people from different industries altogether, because they bring in a fresh thinking, they bring in a fresh take on things, because they are not coming with a baggage. This is your power over experienced professional. Leverage that.
That's amazing. Thank you. And honestly, one thing that you also mentioned that, you know, for your pitch, like for your agenda, you can have get a new job as a part of your agenda when talking with someone. Also wanted to say on a different side, like if someone was reaching out to me and asking for a job, on my side, do I know this person? Do I want to refer this person? I never met that person before. So it's definitely interesting to see, you know, like different perspectives and think about it. Okay, if I reach out, how this person will feel, like what kind of position I would put the person in. So definitely amazing points. Thank you so much. And probably open question for everyone here in the panel. So I know a lot of entry-level jobs, well, sometimes they ask for 10 years of experience. We've probably seen that before too on LinkedIn. But overall, like when you're just a student or you're finishing up, you're looking at that job description and you're like, oh my gosh, do I have everything? What did I learn in college? What kind of things I can transition, you know? So when you look at that job description and you already got some maybe work experience on maybe, you know, you need to get something, how do you overcome that fear of, you know, that applying, even though you might not have enough work experience? Anyone want to jump in? Kevin, maybe? You're on mute. Maybe Mash, maybe you would like to
Sure,
jump.
yeah, I can jump in while we get Kevin set up. I think the general question was about, you know, applying for things where you think when you look at the description and you might feel a little underqualified. And I think some of the biggest lessons I've learned is applying for jobs like that, because you can learn as much from rejection as you can from just getting the job. Just to know, because those, I think they give you an idea of what were some of the things. I think following up after an interview and asking for feedback is a really helpful tool that I've found in that worked for me. And I think getting that feedback and knowing where I can improve and understanding is something that's really, really helped me in my career. That being said, I think when I have seen those jobs in the past, I think there's always other things, other areas of your work experience, school experience, volunteer experience, etc. Other things that you can think about to kind of skills that are transferable. Those things are always helpful. So I don't want to discourage anyone from not applying for those roles where the requirements might seem daunting, because there's a lot you can learn from those roles, and there's also going to gives you an idea of what skills you need to work on in order to be able to get that job that you're applying for.
Amazing. And when you say transferable skills, quick follow up on that. What kind of transferable skills would you say are important maybe in the industry right now? Because I see a lot of people coming from like psychology and like, you know, copywriting, for example. What kind of things do you think are important in the industry right now?
Yeah, well, I think soft skills will take you really, really far. I think a lot of the time, like, you know, just being able to work in team environments, collaborating, effective communicating. I think those are really, really important. Soft skills are always really important and transferable. But I think, you know, Excel is the number one that sticks out to me, I think. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that, I guess, at least in the media side of things in my role, like that's definitely something that that I recommend. And I know coming from school, there's a lot of projects that we worked on that kind of prepare you for these things that you'll be doing in your current role. So those things, just talking about those things, I also found that helped.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Needy? Yes.
Yeah, regarding the job description question that you asked, I have 2 points there. Number one, job description is an ideal list. This is our ideal candidate, but doesn't mean if they don't get a candidate who is A+ on all 10 points, they're not going to hire anyone. So that's number one. Even if you don't match all of it, you can still apply. And this is my suggestion to females, because as per a research, it looks like men apply to jobs even when they think they match 60% of the job description, whereas females won't apply unless and until they are a 90% match. So please go for it, ladies.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much for the advice. Kevin, would you like to jump in?
I'm here now. I would just say apply to everything, honestly. The worst thing that can happen is they throw out your resume or your application. And the best thing that can happen, which actually happened for me during COVID, it didn't result in a job, only interviews, but was that they took my application and said, wow, this looks like it'd be a better fit for a different role that we don't have up yet. So then I ended up transitioning and interviewing for that role instead. So that would be my biggest advice, is just to apply. You never know what could happen. You never know what roles are available or what they'll do with your application or resume.
Amazing. Thank you. And honestly, I feel like if someone doesn't select you for the role, probably it's for the best, because you need to make sure you're a good fit for that role. So if they feel like you're not a good fit at that time, it's fine. Just move on. Thank you. Next. So definitely, thank you so much for the advice there. And I see a lot of questions in QA box for like getting that first opportunity. We all know that is like super hard when you just finish college and you're like, oh my gosh, like I'm putting together my resume right now. Do I put my projects there? How do I get that first job? What kind of a first job do I need? Am I going to be a marketing specialist, a copywriter, or social specialist? There's just so many things. It's overwhelming. So what's maybe one or up to three advice that you would get to those who are just breaking in the industry and trying to get that first opportunity? Yes, Jen.
First, I would ask, challenge what you consider an opportunity, because it could be so many different things. Like sometimes it's just meeting people, sometimes it's just literally getting the interview, like that counts as an opportunity as well. But just kind of have an open box for what you consider like one step up the ladder, because like we've all said earlier, so many things can lead to other things that you'll never see coming. So, I mean, if you do have a broad idea of what that opportunity is, then, like we discussed in the last question, just apply for all the things. If you get a call back, boom, that's one step up. We've learned something there. Maybe you don't necessarily get a call back, but if you want to just maybe reach out to someone who's in a similar role, or just learn about the things that they've learned in that role, maybe have an indirect mentor, or at least get advice or information from someone who's in that role or position or near it or is working towards it, that's another networking opportunity that can help get other opportunities. So kind of just have a huge kind of window to what opportunity looks like, and thinking about that versus where you're trying to get to within your goal list. That could kind of help reframe and reshape your expectations versus reality, and then how you address it or how you rejig it if it doesn't go as planned. I don't know if that counts as a point, but those are my thoughts on that particular question.
I think it does. Anyone else want to jump in here? Kevin, Mesh, Needy, any advice for those who are trying to get that first job?
I don't actually have much experience here. Like I did apply for a lot of jobs, but like I said in the chat, for me it was mostly a combination of who I knew through my internship and just getting lucky. So my advice would be to just keep trying, and it'll eventually work out, hopefully.
Yeah, just to piggyback of what Jen and Kevin said, I think the biggest thing is not get discouraged. Keep on keeping on and just keep on trying. It only takes one yes, right? So just don't be discouraged and keep going at it.
100%. No, great advice. So I know we talked a lot about networking, and we talked about maybe getting that networking opportunity, but what about maintaining relationships with those in the network? So I saw the question in the chat and I thought it's very interesting, because yes, you do connect with the person, you get to know them, but what happens next? Did you guys try to reconnect with someone like in a month or 2 months? I think I heard some from Jen, I believe I heard that. But what are your tips kind of next to this kind of topic right now would you recommend if you had experience with that? Anyone? Jen? Yes.
Okay. It kind of also plays back on like the pitch conversation in terms of like marketing and how you approach people and the content you want to go through in that conversation. I know a lot of the tips that I got when meeting certain people were to be valuable or consider the value of their time and like not to waste it. So after you've made that connection, I guess technically within the pitch stage, you would kind of leave them with like a CTA, maybe like just something to kind of round back to or something. I'm having a hard time verbalizing it, but basically, if you're going to meet someone, try to plant the seeds for you guys to speak again, even if it's just going to be connecting on LinkedIn and be like, oh, that was a great conversation. I saw you did this the other day. How did that go? And building on that conversation from there, that's a really good way to kind of keep the conversation going. But also in a less creepy way, kind of like follow them on their social media, see what they're up to, see what their company is doing. If they release something that you're like, wow, that was amazing. Can you tell me about the process of this? Like, how did this work? What was the production like? What was the big idea like in terms of pitching that to client? Just follow the things that interest you about the person that you've met. Don't just be there and be like, oh, they post something. Wow, what an amazing flyer. Like, no, like genuinely want to have more information about the thing that they're doing. And that really helps you kind of like form that relationship and build on it, because then you end up places or you meet more people. And at least in that sense, you know that the person that you're meeting and the people you'd be working with have similar interests to you. So it kind of helps strengthen the connection further. It's not just meeting people for the sake of meeting people, it's meeting people and then building shared interests, or building on shared interest rather.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Needy, do you have something that you want to add to that?
I can take a stab at it. So you have to find a reason or something to keep in touch. People that you really value in your network. Okay. I have 1,000 connections in Canada on LinkedIn, but I cannot catch up with those many. Plus, there is a small circle that I maintain that relationship with. Always, I would say, being a cheerleader for them when great. And it makes sense because they know that you are also providing that encouragement or value to them whenever needed. I'll try and give you an example. I connected with somebody at Canadian Tire when I didn't have a job. Okay, I connected with that person and somehow we couldn't connect on a call. Okay, somehow he didn't have time or whatever. And then when I joined Walmart, somebody reached out, one of my clients reached out to me saying they are looking to do business with Canadian Tire, which is actually my competition. But then I reached out to this person and said that I have a vendor and they are keen to do business with you as well. So would you mind if I connect you? Who would say no to business? No one, right? I connected both of them. That guy thanked me. I'd never connected with this guy in person, but I still provided a value. Now, if tomorrow I want to connect with him on a call, what do you think are the chances that he would say yes? So whether you connect or not, chances to keep in provide value to people. Just don't miss out on those opportunities, because if you haven't got a chance the first time to get that connection relationship going on, you may get another time.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I know that when you started in the industry, something, maybe one or two things.
I have so many things, but I'll do the most important ones as I'm still super close and new to industry. And this is something that my mentor did ream into me literally on a weekly basis. You're going to be afraid for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of unknowns, a lot of like untrampled territory for you in your career just yet. And that's fine. You're going to be scared. Maybe you're going to be just like a little bit anxious about it, but that is absolutely fine. You have to be able to muster up enough audacity to be scared like crapless, and be like, all right, be like trembling, shivering, do both of those and do the thing anyways, because you don't get more comfortable with the unknown unless you do it. So just do. Like I remember my first month of interning was me panicking about things and then just like aggressively messaging her, like, hi, help, support. And she's like, oh no, just do the things. You're good. You got here for a reason. Like they know what you're about. They know what you know. Actively do things to help get your comfort zone a little bit more expanded, a little bit more solid in the new space that you're in. Yes, that is the one thing that I wish I knew, or rather listened to from the first week. It would have helped so much faster. So just do that kind of thing, guys. Just your emotions are your emotions and they're very valid, but also you're worth more than being afraid for like the 12 minutes that you're gonna be afraid for. So do it anyways.
Amazing. Step out of your comfort zone all the time and you'll get where you want to get. 100%. Thank you so much. Mesh?
Sure. Yeah, I think one thing I would have said coming into the industry, I think just being more open to all the possibilities. I think I mentioned I'm coming in from a sport marketing background, right? So just being open to all the opportunities and kind of getting the foot in the door and then kind of following your interests and kind of getting into it. So I think that's something that, you know, looking back, like I wish I was a little bit more open as to the kind of roles that I would have applied for or kind of looked for.
Thank you so much. Kevin?
Yeah, similar to what Jen said, I think like comfort is the enemy of growth. And when I started, I had like a very slow learning curve for the first whole year while I was doing the broadcast buying. And then when I transitioned to the strategy role, I was actually like, I had no idea what to do for strategy. So I was kind of expecting to go to like the assistant strategist. So starting out as strategy, I was really nervous and scared, and I probably made so many mistakes in my first couple weeks, couple months. But the amount of growth and learning that I did in that 3 months, like looking back on it now, it's crazy to think. So I would say like, yeah, just don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, and all you can do is grow from there, right? So.
Amazing. Yes, definitely. And honestly, even for me, when I was getting my first job, I was like, do I deserve this job? Is this good? Am I good enough for this job? Like, do I know things that I need to know? Do they know that I know things that I need to know? So a lot of those questions and fears, and I think we all went through this. And I think it's important to be like, okay, I'm going to do it. You know, it doesn't matter. Everything's going to be okay. Prepare yourself mentally. And no, definitely. Thank you so much. And Nidhi, I think you're the last here to share.
I'm going to talk about LinkedIn. Spend time on LinkedIn. It's not just your online resume. It is your reputation. Spend time, do content. And what others said, I'm going to reiterate the same point. Great is the enemy of good. If you are good at something, go for it, do it, and keep optimizing. That's what a lot of startups do. They launch and they keep optimizing. So do that. Last year, after Student Day event, I started doing content on LinkedIn. And I'm a very camera shy person. You won't feel it now, but I am. When I posted my first video, it was a disaster. You couldn't even play it. But do it anyway. You don't become an expert before you start doing things. You become an expert after you do those things. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Great advice and great panel. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll throw it back to Caitlin now.
Amazing. That was awesome. Such great conversation. I love hearing these stories, especially the ones that I'm included in. Mash and Nidhi, appreciate it. Bye to our panel number 1, folks. You can go off camera now and we will introduce our panel number 2, which is going to be moderated by Stacy. So all of our panel number 2 participants, please turn your camera on. Tara, Cynthia, Jed, Stacy, welcome. We're so excited to hear the seasoned professionals' perspectives after hearing from our recent students. So I will throw it over to our moderator, Stacy, and we'll kick it off.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Caitlin. Hi, everyone. My name is Stacey Spranza. I'm in my 4th year at the University of Toronto in the Rotman Commerce program. I'm also the co-founder and host of the Business Casual podcast. So also have my own story with Caitlin. We connected last year. She was on my podcast and we kind of kept in touch, and she talked a lot about her work with AdClub. So we were able to reconnect recently, and she invited me to be part of this panel to moderate it. So huge thank you to her and everyone who put together this event. I am very excited to be here, and we have a great panel. So I will throw it off to our panelists to introduce themselves. Maybe we'll start with Jed to just share a bit more about you and your experiences.
Sure. Great to be here. My name is Jed Schneiderman. I'm the country manager for a company called Jebbit. We're a SaaS platform that helps companies do personalization and better data collection. And my background is marketing with a little bit of media and some technology. So I started my career at Procter & Gamble, worked in marketing at AOL and Microsoft, was fortunate to spend some time in television where I launched MTV and did a bunch of other things at Bell Media. And then I ran my own company called Tap Mobile for about 9 years, and we sold that business. And we sold mobile advertising solutions. So we had all the agencies were our clients, and we worked with a whole bunch of major brands. So that's my background.
Awesome. Thanks, Jed. Cynthia?
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Cynthia Rubino. I am the founder of Citrine Consultancy, a company where we focus on educating and advocating as it relates to the advertising and marketing industry, more specifically, and also putting wellness at the forefront. My career started and ended at the agency level. Was fortunate enough to work at a great company called Cassette, which I'm sure some of you or all of you are familiar with, and then moved over to work with some great agencies under the Omnicom business. From there, I am now a life and wellness certified coach, as well, and proud to be a professor at Sheridan College. So hello to all of my students at the Sheridan College Advertising and Marketing program at the Pilon School of Business. As well, I was fortunate enough to sit on the AdClub of Toronto board, where I sat as the Director of Giving, and also the NABS Central Advisory Committee. So definitely wellness is at the forefront for me, always taking care of the people. I took care of the product for a very long time, and now my focus is on the people.
Awesome. And last but not least, Tara.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Hi, my name is Tara Richardson. I am the VP of Sales for Canada for a company called Zephyr. And originally in my sort of work journey, I had moved to Toronto and started off in the recruitment industry. After about a year and a half reading over resumes and interviewing people, I moved into media sales and have since been here selling everything from print media and now digital to basically everything under the sun. And I've been with Zephyr for almost 7 years now. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you.
Great. So as you can see, we have tons of experience to draw on for the panel. And I kind of want to start a conversation back with the topic that came up during Victor's keynote speech. I know the first panel talked a little bit more about networking, but another topic that's really hot right now and a lot of students are talking about is this idea of transitioning from remote work to in-person. And so I know a lot of organizations have been fully remote or now transitioning back to in-person. So what are some factors to consider when seeking your first job and adapting to company norms as we transition between in-person to virtual, and while some companies are still hybrid? So maybe Cynthia, we'll start with you.
Sure. You know, I know it's difficult, especially for students, and I can attest to it. You know, they probably never stepped onto campus soil. And so for them to, you know, be able to go into the workforce in person is a big deal. I think you just need to, you know, transition yourself slowly but surely, but it is really key, if you can, to be in person. It's so important to meet people, connect with them. It's very different when you're live. And also you learn through osmosis. You learn the way in which the dealings are, and more importantly, the culture of the the four walls that sort of surround you. And you get opportunities, I find, when people see you face to face. So I would definitely take that opportunity to go in as much as possible and be able to step out of your comfort zone. I know for some of you might be difficult from a commuting standpoint. Maybe it's not what you're used to, but that's actually very good for you to grow and transition, because you do want to get into the workforce being in person if possible.
For sure. And Jed, I also want to get your thoughts on this, because I know your company is based out of the States, but you're here in Canada. So would love to hear about the importance of being in person.
Yeah, I mean, I think it varies for every person, every manager, and every company. So I don't think there's a perfect answer, but I think here are a couple concepts to think about. One is understand what your corporate culture is, and you should work to understand that in the interviewing process. So if your company wants you in the office 4 days a week and you don't want to be in the office, don't work there. And yes, one might say, well, I shouldn't have to conform to their sort of norms, but the reality is you do. And if you're in a spot where you don't have a lot of choice, maybe they're offering a better salary, I still think that you've got to show up with your best self. I think the other thing is you have to understand your manager preferences. So I will tell you that as someone who's been working for 25 years, my preference is to work with people. A related point is, and I think Cynthia touched on this, there's sort of a concept of serendipity and manufactured luck. So if you're around the action, you have a greater probability that you might get pulled into a meeting that you don't belong into, but someone will let you listen. You might actually get caught in the elevator with someone senior and you have a chance to learn from them. You might get pulled into a lunch or a breakfast, or someone might ask you for coffee. So it's not to say that being away from the office is a good thing or a bad thing, but if you're in the office, you're not going to get invited for coffee, you're not going to get invited for a meeting, and you're not going to have random run-ins with folks in the office. So the reality is, and I'm pretty harsh when it comes to some of this advice, the world doesn't owe you anything. So you might think that, the company has to bend over backwards. They absolutely do not. And if they do, great. But the point is, you kind of have to lean in, manage up, and being around means that you have a greater likelihood that good things will happen to you. And so it's up to the individual to choose, but think about the company, think about the manager. And I'm seeing a lot of these comments about like what folks prefer. That's great. But if your boss wants you in the office 5 days a week, your desire for a hybrid work location probably isn't going to jive with what the manager wants. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, no, it's really important to consider, especially in person, being in front and being visible, because it obviously helps you get more opportunities. And if you're in sight, then you're in mind, which is obviously really important for students. And so, Tara, I'd love to get your input. I see a lot of comments in the chat about hybrid. So let's say your company is only in the office once a week. How can you maximize that one day you're in the office? And how can you maximize building those relationships when in the office?
Yeah, so we're 100% remote, just being a smaller office in Canada. But I do think there are a few things, that you need to know if it is hybrid. First and foremost, if you do have to take a position that is strictly remote and you're not in an office every day, my one piece of advice would be to be kind to yourself, because I've noticed when we hire people that it takes them a lot longer to actually learn. The learning curve takes a lot more time than what it usually would if you are immersed in the office. So always just ask a ton of questions, make sure that you're getting clarity. And if that's the situation that you're in, just try and make the best of it. I do think when you're in a hybrid solution, it is the best of both worlds, if that's what you can get. And with that, I would just say, similar to what the other panelists have said, really try to be proactive in meeting with different people and carving out that time to sit down and speak with maybe your manager or coworkers, just so that you're getting, you're hearing from them as well. If there's any issues within the company, if there's anything else going on, you always get those other pieces of information that you would never get just being strictly in your office.
For sure. I think that's a really great piece of advice. A couple comments that are coming in through the chat about in-person networking and transitioning from an online networking to in-person networking, and some tips for standing out. I know we have the in-person networking for this event later today. So can we give maybe 3 tips that students can implement if you're at an in-person networking event to stand out? And maybe we'll start with Jed this time.
Sure. And let's use a real-time example. The first tip is do your homework. So I had 4 generic LinkedIn invites from people at the start of this panel. There was no customization. They hadn't even listened to what I had to say, and they didn't even go to my profile to tease out a few talking points. So if you're going to see me at the event, you should go to my LinkedIn profile. You should do a Google search. You should do the same for Cynthia and Tara and Caitlin and Stacy. And if you want to have a conversation with someone, be informed, because that's what it takes to be successful in your job. You can't show up to a meeting without preparation. And if you think of the rapport that you build with friends and family, you have all this history, you have this ability. So for me, I'm a bit of a loss as to why people stop thinking when they try to network, because you would never walk up to someone and just expect that a generic hello would result in someone being really interested in what you have to say. So just spend 5 minutes to do your homework. You can do it in an Uber, you can do it on the TTC, you can do it while you're walking up the stairs, but do your homework and customize your message, because at the end of the day, that's what marketing is, right? Marketing shares an insight, it connects with the other person so that they pay attention. And if you don't do any homework, you're very easy to ignore.
Yeah, really good piece of advice. And if you're not familiar, on LinkedIn, you can add a note. So you can personalize every single invite you send on LinkedIn. That's a great way to show that you've done your homework, and will also make the conversation a lot more productive and effective. Cynthia, did you want to add something?
Yeah, you know what? 100% agree with what Jed had to say. Listen, you only get one chance to make a first impression. And you have to know what it is that you want. So do your homework, understand, what you're going to be asking, and have purpose. I too have so many people reaching out to me, and then it just becomes a running tally or just like a blur of people. And that doesn't do anything for you nor me. You need to stand out. And those that stand out are those that put effort in, period.
Awesome. Tara, did you want to add anything else as well?
Yeah, I, truly believe do your homework, but I also believe in practicing. Get with a group of friends, practice some of the questions that you think you're going to want to ask people when you're in person with them, and see how it lands, and see if that actually will develop into a conversation that is meaningful for both parties. That's one of the things that I can remember being at networking events when I was younger. And I really didn't know how to even start the conversation. I just knew I was there and had to say something. But if I would have, practiced, studied, then I would have felt a lot more confident in my ability to start those awkward conversations sometimes.
And I think as a student myself, going from virtual to in-person, a great way to practice is pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone, which I know our last panel talked a lot about. So going to these networking events and practicing in person is a lot different than virtual. So hopefully you're able to get to a couple in-person events, because that'll definitely help you push yourself outside your comfort zone and practice those in-person conversations that I know a lot of students aren't used to. So we've talked a little bit about networking, getting the job. You start the job, and a lot of students don't know really how to stand out once they've actually started. So maybe we can talk about something you can do in the first 30 days to make a great first impression with your manager. And Tara, I want to start with you, since you are fully remote, your company. So what are some things that students can do when they start the job to really start off on a good foot and get to know the company in the first 30 days?
Yeah, I think for me, it would definitely have to be communication. I think within the first 30 days, I saw someone in the chat mention, like, is there ever a time when there's too many questions? And I don't think there is. I think there's too many different questions is great. I think the problem comes up is when you have the same question over and over again to the same person. That's when people start to get a little frustrated, because you should have written it down so you know it the first time. But again, I do also think that you should meet with your coworkers, meet with your managers within the first 30 days. Even if you're just remote, meet them for a coffee, a virtual coffee, ask them what's expected of you, ask them how you succeed in this. Just really communicate to first show how much you're interested in being there, and then tell them how willing you are to do what you need to do to make sure that you're successful in the role.
Yeah, great advice. Cynthia, did you want to add on to that?
I mean, don't put too much pressure on yourself for the first 30 days. I think you just need to discover, right? Explore, get curious, absolutely ask questions, and connect with as many people as you can. Understand what they do, right? Understand how you can contribute to what they do, and be able to understand what it is that you're doing to contribute to the whole. It's important to not only work independently, but collaboratively. And the only way you're going to do that is if you get to know your team, get to know, your other departments, if you have access to that, and just, have fun and be able to challenge yourself. I always say that the workplace will give you what you put in. So the more you put in, the more the workplace will be able to provide back to you.
Awesome. Jed, did you have anything else you want to add on to that?
Sure. 2 tactical suggestions. Get a work plan. If you don't have a work plan for the first 30 days, you're in trouble, and that's your manager's job. They should break out the first 4 weeks. Good companies will pre-book meetings for you. They will also pre-book trainings. Make sure that your first 4 weeks is mapped out before you start, and ask for that document before you start so that you can actually hit the ground running. Secondly is, if you have a manager, you probably will, do an expectation settings meeting. Sit down with them and both of you ask each other the same questions. When should I show up for work? What does success look like? How do you like to communicate? How do you like to give feedback? What do we do if we disagree? What if we get mad at one another? You can develop a whole set of questions, because otherwise you're guessing as to the single most important person. You're guessing how they like to work. So you've basically got to get that out of the way, like in your first week, so that you can understand how to communicate. If you have a serious update, can you send it over email, over Slack? Is that something that requires a meeting? Is text messaging available or an option? If you're running late, does your boss want to hear from you? You literally have to go over all the basic ground rules in terms of understanding how your boss likes to work, as well as adjacent departments.
I think the work plan also takes the pressure off you because you know what to expect. I think a lot of times as someone who's joining a company, there's a lot of pressure because you're not sure what the expectations are yet. I think that's really great advice you can apply at any point in your career when you're first starting a job to make sure that you know what to expect as you get in. Taking another question from the chat here, and I want to start with Jed. People are asking if they're coming in with over 5 years of experience, maybe from a different industry that might not match up with the industry they want to transition into, how can they transfer some of their skills and experience to have an advantage over maybe fresh students who are coming out of school? So how can they apply the skills they've learned in a different industry to apply for jobs in a switching industries, like transitioning?
I mean, there's a couple ways of looking at it. One is taking like a skills-based orientation to the question. So if you have 5 years of experience, there's no reason why you can't go apply for a job that requires 5 years of experience. What you're going to have to do is tell the interviewer or tell the company doing the screening why your skills and why your experience and why all of your sort of other things that you bring to the table are a fit. You have to demonstrate it through examples. If you're gonna try to prove a point, anything less than 2 is not showing consistency. So if you can only give one example of having done something, you're probably in a deficit position. But essentially, you have to go and create an argument. I think what you also have to do is demonstrate how you're going to add value. So if we go back to the earlier question around networking, do your homework, right? So do an analysis, do some research on the business, identify an area where you can actually help, and you probably have a greater likelihood of doing it. So, I mean, there's no shortcut, there's no blueprint, there's no, we use a North American expression, there's no Cole's Notes, which is sort of like a cheat sheet to get through that. It's a bit of a numbers game, but the reality is if you want to stand out, you've got to get someone to pause, reflect, and think, which they're only going to do if you're offering up something unique and different.
For sure. Cynthia, do you have anything else you want to add to that?
I mean, at the end of the day, the employer needs to hire someone who is going to somehow hit the ground running. The bandwidth is just so tight, if not, broken. So they want someone who's going to be able to take on the work, do it as, to the best of their ability, work independently, do all those things. And so kind of to what Judd was saying is you have to let them understand why you, like why me, who has 5 years experience of another industry can beat out, someone who has the paper behind the industry. What's the difference? And so you have to be able to sell yourself for that position. I often will tell, people to do their homework in terms of the job description. Understand the role that you are getting into and see yourself in that role. Allow yourself to see all the different types of job descriptions, the role, what does it entail, and how do you see yourself? And walk in there as if you already have the role. So there's not only, convincing the person, but actually substantiating why.
And I think building off of this, something that was also mentioned in the keynote was this idea that your career is not linear and you will have many roles and many jobs throughout your time. And so, Tara, I'd love to get your input here about not finding your dream job or not knowing exactly what industry or what specific role you want to do. So what has your experience been like, and how did you eventually find where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. My journey's quite different, I would say, maybe not from that many other people, but most people. Whereas, I started in university, I started in sciences, thought I wanted to be a doctor, switched from that to nutrition, and then took a postgrad in public relations. So immediately when I left school, I had this mindset of, I want to be in PR. That's what I took in school. And I think a lot of people at that point get really stuck in trying to find the perfect position, or one that makes 100% aligned with what they think they want to do at the time. What I quickly learned was there was not that many jobs available in public relations, at least for someone in their beginning of their career at the time. And I immediately started to panic, but I was able to then, I jumped to the recruitment industry. So I started working by interviewing people. And I often believe that not at least all experience that you have that you can put on a resume is pretty well good experience, because you can learn things from different positions that you are in. I jumped from recruitment into media sales because a girlfriend of mine said, I think you'd be great at this. You should try this as well. Never in my life, I fought tooth and nail saying I would never be in sales, because that's just not where I see myself, and I don't see myself as a salesperson. But, here I am 15 years or more later, and I'm in sales, all because I took a chance and took a job that I didn't think was aligned with what I wanted to do, but also thought, hey, why not? So I think the real important takeaway is don't get hooked on, I want this job with this title. Take a job, even if it's not perfect fit, it can definitely parlay into something that, maybe you didn't think of before, or maybe it brings you back to that lane again that you were looking to stay in. So just get as much experience as you possibly can, and don't wait 6 months until that perfect job, or a year until that perfect job comes along.
I think it's great advice, and something that we don't talk enough about as students is, I know in my experiences, now that I'm applying for full-time roles, it's hard when in school what the next step is, and in a job you don't know what the next step is. So you think that the job you first take is going to be your forever job, but that obviously is not true for a majority of people. And you have so many career changes throughout your time. So it's really great hearing more about your experiences. I know we only have about 10 minutes left, so I want to open up the floor to any questions and start with some questions that are coming in from the chat. We're seeing a lot of questions about what makes you, or what's most important throughout the application process. So is it work experience? Is it your grades and GPA? Is it cover letters? Is it networking? So maybe we'll start with Cynthia. In your experience, what makes someone stand out in the application process out of those things I just listed?
You know what? There isn't one thing. When I would hire for my team, it was a combination of everything, right? Do you have a piece of paper? Yes, cool, check. What kind of experience do you have, if any? Is there any lag time between, your work experience? What extra stuff have you done? And then when I meet you, how's the interview process? Right? How are you in answering questions? How is your personality? How are you? So on and so forth. So don't just focus on one specific thing. And in terms of GPA, I think you said GPA. No, we don't care about your GPA, quite honestly. Like, I'm not going to ask you what your GPA is, nor should you put it on your resume. But simply, our job is not, we're not saving lives, everybody. We're not saving lives. So at the end of the day, you have to have a very good work ethic, a very positive attitude, and the willingness to learn, to grow, and to challenge yourself and be able to work smart. Because I don't want someone who's going to work hard. Work hard to me really doesn't mean anything, because I need someone who's going to work smart and be efficient and be productive in what they do. That is what you need to bring to the table.
Sorry if you hear my dog, she's barking in the back. But so one thing I want to follow up that you just said is that you personally do not care if a GPA is on the resume. So do you think as a student, is that, and I'd love to hear from everyone's perspective, do you think students should add their GPA to their resume, or is it not a factor that you consider? Maybe Jed, do you want to tune in here?
I don't know, use it if it's particularly high. Don't use it if it's not. I mean, it's up to you. I mean, again, I think have to do there's no playbook on this stuff. You're asking a lot of very pointed questions when you're applying for a job. In some cases, you're getting through ATS or application tracking systems. In other cases, it's directly to the hiring manager. In some cases, it's to HR. I ran my own business for the better part of running the company. We were roughly about 10 people. We would handle recruiting in a very different way than a large agency that might have 200 or 300 people. So you have to do your homework, right? You can call the HR department and try to get someone on the phone. You can try to get the receptionist to answer the phone. You can try to get someone in the organization to simply answer a couple of questions so that you can mine one or two details. If all you're doing is going off of, Indeed or the company's website and you're firing off a generic resume, you're probably wasting your time, and you're probably wasting, memory space on your computer, because you're just guessing. And so here's another way of looking at it. If you do get the job and you actually don't know why you got the job, it'll be that much harder to kind of build knowledge for future applications. So, I mean, again, there's a favorite expression of mine, which is there's no shortcut to awesome. You have to do the homework, right? So, yeah, I mean, you might get lucky if you send out 1,000 job applications, you might get one. I mean, if that's something that you want to do, but you have to do your homework, otherwise you're guessing. And so again, I don't think any of us can definitively answer these questions without knowing who the hiring manager is, who the company is, what the economic environment is, and all the other factors that we've already discussed: work experience, GPA, the school that you go to, all that kind of stuff.
For sure. Tara, did you want to add anything else to that?
I would just say that, honestly, with regards to a resume, I know it's pretty basic, but I can't tell you how many times I read a resume, and I read thousands of them during my time in the recruitment company, is that please have someone else look at it, make sure there are no mistakes, because I can't tell you how many times I saw a resume that I felt was a pretty good fit, but there were errors all over the page. So I had to just say, you know what, if this is their best attempt, this isn't going to translate into the position that my clients are looking for. So I would say definitely just do a once over, have friends look at it, get a professional resume writer to help you, and then tweak it as you go, dependent on the role. I would also say that if you don't necessarily have the skills for a specific job that you want, you might be able to network within LinkedIn and find someone who has a similar job and ask them what programs they're using, ask them what they do on a daily basis. So then you can tweak your resume even more. And again, you're doing your homework, but you can put in and you can actually learn different programs. Like maybe you don't have experience, but you could go through and learn different ones, or, take a course in it so that you can put that on your resume to show that this is how interested I am in this position, is I actually took a course myself to learn more about, this certain program or whatnot. I would also say, definitely do creative things too. I can remember seeing a resume come in on a vase with flowers. They had written their whole resume out on a vase. And it was like, okay, if this person's willing to go that far just to submit their resume to a recruitment company, imagine what they're going to do in the role that they get. So I think it's a little bit harder now with moving parts and not everyone in an office all the time. But I do think there's other creative options there that you can utilize and that might make you stand out a bit more.
I'm really glad you brought up the point about if you don't have experience or if you want to make yourself stand out, doing courses specific to the role you're applying to. And I know prior to this panel, Jed, you were talking about students who take that extra step to take free courses, do certificates to get more technical skills in the area that they want to apply to, helps them stand out. So maybe you can talk a bit about some of those courses or where you can find those, or how you can, again, if you don't have skills in that specific industry, get those skills. There's a lot of free resources out there.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I mean, the headline basically is if you're applying for a job where you're expected to do something, so hands-on keyboard, you should know what platforms being required by job, and you should know how to proficient in the job. So if you want to go inbox on Facebook, go get certified on Facebook. All you have to do is go to their website to do the course. The same for GAs or Google Analytics or Google search. There's other certifications for all the major platforms. If you want to add value, and typically building on a point that Cynthia made earlier, you're being hired because there's work to be done. So you're applying for a job, a career, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, there is some work somewhere in the company that needs to be done. So if you can show up on the first day and you can actually get that work done without, talked earlier about get a plan, chance that if you show first day and you see that someone needs help with Photoshop and you actually know how to use Photoshop, it's going to be a huge asset and you're going to make a great first impression. Probably go look at 10, 20, 30 postings that interest you, see which ones bubble to the top, and then go get certified. That's it. Go do that.
Cynthia, I see you nodding your head. Did you want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, quite simply, effort in is effort out. Period. The more effort you do your research, this whole theme about everything that we've been mentioning, whether it's networking, whether it's your free, which should be a basic thing that all of you should be doing. Whether it's that, whether it's, applying, whether it's getting certified, it's all about the pre-work. Once you, put your effort in and research and think about and actually do, then you will land a job.
I see a couple of things coming in the chat, and I know that Jed already answered one, but a very current topic that's being talked about a lot in the news, and I know it's a lot of conversations regarding a recession, and so how that might affect companies' hiring strategies, and in the event that companies have a hiring freeze, are there any recommendations on ways that students can, either whether that's slow recruiting or things students can do as we kind of potentially enter a recession? I know no one can predict the future, but would love to hear anyone's thoughts on that, if anyone.
Sure. Show how you can make money for them. That's it. So if your salary is X, show that you can drive a 2X return on your salary. They'll hire you, even in a recession. But most people don't do that. Most people know how to do it. So go figure it out. So if you're going into search, right, I don't know, talk about how you brought down the CPC, or you increased the conversion rate, or you built up organic search rankings, which meant they had to invest money on paid search, or something. That's a perfect example of why someone will hire you. Yeah, I have my business. I was like, what am I do next? I read about Jebbit in a TechCrunch article. I went to the website, I did a demo, I cold called the president, and I convinced him to hire me. There was a little bit more involved. There were some steps involved in terms of what I could do for the business from a revenue generation standpoint, all the people that I knew, all the things that I knew, and I convinced him to hire me. There was no job posting. I created a job for myself. And you can make every excuse in the world and say that's easier for someone with 25 years of experience. But really, the world doesn't have much patience for excuses, because someone will go figure out a way while you're busy making excuses. So if you want to go get a job, explain to the hiring manager how you're a safe bet, that they can get a incremental return on your salary. And there's not a company in the country that shouldn't at least give you the opportunity to pitch them on that concept. And if they don't, it's not a company you want to work for.
I want to get Cynthia and Tara's point of view on this as well, but I mean, I think a lot of what you're saying is also about personal selling and being able to sell yourself to a company and sell the assets that you bring, which I know, going back to like networking, which we've been talking a lot about throughout the day, that's a really important part in knowing how to build those relationships and have those conversations. So Cynthia and Tara, any tips on, dealing with a recession, but also maybe on personal branding and how to creatively differentiate yourself and prove what you can bring to a company?
I honestly just think, and maybe this is because I'm in sales, but for me, the follow-up is massive. Like, I can't tell you, like, out of sight, out of mind. If you're not following up with the hiring manager, even though they said there's no job available right now, we're on a hiring freeze. If you're not following up with them every couple weeks saying, I'm still here, I'm still interested, the minute that things turn around, they will call you because you have been there consistently and you've shown massive interest in working for their company. So I think that's a lot of things that people go, oh, I got turned down, and they just leave it alone. Don't. Just keep reaching out, talk to whoever you can, and then you'll be the first to know when they're able to hire.
Yeah, great piece of advice. Cynthia, anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, just to Tara's point, it's top of mind, right? There's a lot of noise going on. It's very busy, and you always want to be top of mind. So that means you putting effort in. That means how bad do you want it, really? How bad do you want it? Because if you really, really want a specific job, working at a specific company, then you got to go for it. That is what differentiates you versus the other person. It's just like what Jed said, right? He created his own position. Why? Because he wanted it and he proved to them that he could do it. And that's what you guys need to do. I mean, we're going into recession. I don't have a crystal ball. I have no idea what's going to happen in terms of the industry or the workforce. But at the end of the day, if there is a company or position that you are desperately wanting, or at least wanting to work for a company, I don't know, maybe, there's lots of options, but maybe one option is for you to, volunteer there, be able to provide your services at no charge for this, part. Depends on, if you're able to do that. But it all depends on your appetite. How hungry are you? And it's those that have a big belly that will be able to, fast track further.
And that's on mute. I think your point ties back to what we kind of started this conversation on, which is that being in person and being front of mind is what's going to help you stand out. So trying your best to like get in person and meeting people and building those face-to-face connections is really important. We've heard so much great advice from all three of our panelists today. We have a few minutes left, so I just really quickly wanted to wrap up with what are your top 3 do's and top 3 don'ts in regards to your career and what you've learned along the way. So maybe Jed, we'll start with you. Your biggest top 3 do's and don'ts in terms of anything regarding to career, whether it's applications, starting a job, progressing through a career, getting a promotion, like what are your biggest do's and don'ts?
Work for a great boss, work for a great company, advocate for yourself. So the person that's going to have the greatest impact on your own career is yourself, which means you have to, study more, learn more, be curious, ask for more work, but you shape your own destiny. So, but the person you work for matters a great deal. They should be a good human being. They should be able to teach you something, and the same for a good company. So find a good company and a good boss that allows you to be the most successful person in your career. And the reality is a lot of career paths aren't linear, right? We've heard that from other folks. We heard that, I think Tara told a wonderful narrative around her career. And really, don't worry about comparing yourselves to other people. Worry about what you think is going to get you to some end state or to some future state that's going to make you satisfied. You got a lot of years ahead of you to work. Work's a grind. It's hard. But if you're surrounded by good people and you're learning, it enables you to kind of find, I think, the strength and the fortitude that Cynthia talked about to keep you moving forward and progressing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jed, for all of your advice. Tara?
I would say there's a couple of things. For me, it's always number one is attitude. I think this has been mentioned a lot as well, and you're in it to learn and you're enthusiastic. I think that shows people a lot more than necessarily just the hard skills that you sometimes have. It is about the soft skills. I would also say that, make sure if you're going into an interview, time and time again, I've gone into different interviews and I will Google every possible question that they might ask me, just so that I can write an answer down and be prepared, so that if they ask a random question, I probably have an answer to it already. So I think if you're trying to find that position, really, again, know the company, but again, Google every single question that you can find so that you're prepared for that. Those would be my top 2, and just, work hard, be flexible with what people need. And I think you'll go a long way.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, Cynthia.
So in marketing, we teach you about the 4 Ps, right? Price, place, product, and promo. I need you to change your mindset and go from the classroom to the boardroom. And I need you to think about the 4 Ps as being positive, proactive, productive, and more importantly, professional. You have the choice. Ultimately, it's up to you. So you can decide to take the driver's seat or the back seat. Whatever you decide is what's going to come back to you. So you are in control of the journey. It's a fantastic journey. It's a fantastic industry, lots of opportunity, lots of success, lots of growth. But you are the one who is in control.
Awesome. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. And thank you so much, AdClub Toronto, for having me. I will now pass it back off to Caitlin and Chris.
Thanks so much, Cynthia, Jed, Tara, and Stacy as our moderator. We love having you always here for our AdClub Student Days. So much great advice, real advice, which is what we need. It is tough out there with the upcoming recession that's talked about. So really appreciate all your time for our professional perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So just going over some of our closing remarks now. Firstly, I'll pass it over to Chris to talk about prizes.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. So just a reminder, everyone who attended today will be entered into the draw for the super cool Yahoo luggage. As an ex-Yahooer, I want to get my hands on this because I've never even seen this before. So very cool prize. I think we've already highlighted the people who won the Spotify subscriptions in the chat. Thank you to my awesome committee for helping manage that in the background. I saw so much chatter going on, but yeah, we'll definitely get those subscriptions to the winners. And then finally, post your thoughts, post a screenshot from the event today on social media, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. Use the hashtag AdClub Student Day 2022. We will find you and we will select a winner for one of the two $100 gift cards courtesy of MNK Media. So thank you again to all participants, and yeah, look to meet in real life at the upcoming Mixer event, networking event.
Which is what I'm going to plug right now.
There we
if
go.
you are able to attend, we are so excited to meet some of you in person. We've hopefully given you enough time for travel and commuting. It's going to start at 5 p.m. It's a drop-in anytime between 5 to 7. Come in just for a quick little visit and say hi. It's once again at 111 Queen Street East, which is the new Publicis office. So you also get to see this awesome agency office that was just recently renovated. There's a Queen Street entrance. The closest subway is Queen Station. We will have signs, we'll have volunteers and the community members pointing you to your way. We're going to have some food. I think we have pizza ordered and some drinks. So we really hope you can make it. We're excited to see some of you there. But also thank you for attending our virtual content today. And then just lastly, in addition to thanking our entire committee, who once again, I showed our committee up at the front in the opening remarks. Everyone put so much hard work into this, and I know we're all excited to celebrate at the Mixer shortly. But also big shout out to our sponsors. We couldn't do these AdClub events without our sponsors. You heard our president speak at the beginning about how all of the money donated goes to NABS, which Mark spoke about. So really, really great not-for-profits in our industry. So thank you to Zephyr as our gold sponsor, which we had Tara representing on panel number 2. Thank you to Auto Trader, who's going to have a recruitment booth at the in-person event later today. Thank you to M2T Collective, which Jed is one of the co-founders, along with Alistair Taylor, who is the CEO of Publicis, where we will be hosting this in-person event, who will also be having a recruiting table. So all this talk about networking and job opportunities, these are the type of events that are a must attend. And then once again, to our bronze sponsors, M&K Media, NABS, Jebit, Hiring the Future, which is Cynthia's company, Spotify, and Publicis for letting us host at their space. Thanks to everyone. Thanks to everyone who attended. We hope you found the sessions valuable. Really appreciate your time. And that's a wrap on AdClub Student Day 2022. I should have some play out music. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.